So welcome to my musical journey part two. The first half ended with me with this insatiable need to be applauded and to want to be famous. Moving up to Coventry for 3 years to do politics and history, and then Paul and Phil were constant visitors. I ran a folk club there at the Lanch. Ended up moving to Brighton. Phil and Paul were living in Brighton. They seemed to be having a nice time. As soon as I got there, the bastards left. But I had my acoustic guitar and I hooked up with Paul's brother Warwick. And for about 4 years, we were pretty successful on the local Sussex folk scene. But then I started meeting more and more people from the London rock and roll scene, particularly a guy called Neil Waterman, an Aussie, who was in publishing at the time. And he always wanted to be in a band. So he said, look, let's put a lineup together. I didn't realise how much effort Neil put in, really, and what it cost him to do that. But yeah, I'm very, very grateful for what he did. And we formed a band with a guy called John Hoare, who I think lurks on this post, on these pages, a wonderful guitar player, and a drummer called Les Mars. So that was the first lineup. I think we're called the Cheats, maybe, or yeah, the Cheats. And we did the pub rock scene. That lineup ended, and then Julian Dyke, Barry Wickens, and Dave McIntosh, Gus Hale, various people, Adrian Wyatt were involved. Total Strangers, Short Stories, and we played I played in various guises until about 1986. By then I was 32. I'd had a go at music. We hadn't been signed. And then I moved back to Dorset. But I'll play you some songs from that era. First of all, I'll play you a song written later than that, which sort of looks back at that time. It's called Be Lucky. And the chap in the second verse who never let me down is a guy who had a great influence on me, a guy called John Roseman, a real character. You can Google him if you like. Agent, video producer, he did Bohemian Rhapsody, and general character. And yeah, I miss John. He's now hanging out in Italy somewhere. I hope he's safe. So this is Be Lucky, including the bit in 7/8, which is always a bit tricky. See how it goes. Haven't sung this for years. I was 17 in a painted caravan where I went to get my fortune told. Space inside they need to fill. Friendship they're prepared to kill. Hunger is their guiding light. They claw, they scratch, they push, they fight. They wanna be lucky. Ooh, ooh. sacrifice, pride in your integrity, for fortune and celebrity. You better be cruel, break the rules. Oh, but in those days, of course, if you didn't get signed, you couldn't even make the demo. You know, it's so democratic these days. You can put a song out on the internet and it can be heard by thousands of people, millions of people. But in those days, the A&R men, there were so many A&R men, there were so many people associated with record companies, and they were the key, you know, and you used to worry more about whether they'd turn up to the gig than the people who turn up and paid to see you. So it was quite easy to get distracted by all that. But as I say, this need for applause, I don't know where it comes from, you know. My wife thinks I was weaned too early because a family clapping's not enough, then a folk club full is not enough, and you know, then an Albert Hall full. And if you have that need for applause, you know, it's it doesn't really matter the numbers on that day. You need your fix. So this is a bit weird, you know, because you're sort of out there, and I can't hear any of this, you know. And I always say, you know, if you have that addiction, as I say, it's not about the amount anymore. You know, how can I say this? Your favourite meal or most memorable, shall I say, romantic liaison. It's not always the quality and the quantity. You know, one of my friends, Ashley Palmer Watts, is now one of the country's top chefs, and we've eaten at the Fat Duck and his other restaurants, Phil and I, and that's amazing. But after Abbotsbury one year, we went down and got some mackerel off Chesil Beach, and we ate them. And on that day, that was as good as anything, you know. So applause is like that. You need your fix. This is all a bit odd, you know. It's nice to get the comments because that sort of shows I'm connected somehow. So anyway, we did some very, very dodgy pubs. Short Stories, The West, Total Strangers, The Cheats, various lineups really. One particular one we did in Shoreham. This is in the very, very first lineup, you know. A classic. There's a lot of ex-gangsters ended up in Brighton. This guy, I forget his name now, it was the pub near a gasworks in Shoreham. Sometimes I drive by thinking I can see it. And it had the stripper on at 6 o'clock and the band were on after that. And the guy actually he goes, I've got a shooter. Want to see my shooter? Leave it out. If you want to hear anybody do Phil Mitchell, you should ask Miranda. She does it. It's scary, you know. Leave it out. He had a shotgun under the bar, just in case things get tasty, right? So we did all those gigs, we did all those pubs, and in between trying to make a living in the band, you know, we had management money. I was signing off and on and all that. I did a bit of guitar teaching at a place called Quentin Kynaston School in Kilburn. A rough school, but I had quite a good time there. And one song that we still play called Exile was written about a couple of whether they were refugees, I'm not really sure now. These two young girls from Eritrea were in the classroom, so elegant and so a long way from home. And here's the nightly interruption. Hello.
Do you want red, white, rosé?
What have you got?
Red, white, rosé, gin, or a Corona?
I love the white.
Don't know.
Is that
It's
the white
not,
wine?
I wasn't joking.
Can I have the white wine?
Yeah, well,
Thank you,
this was
Claire.
mine, but you can have.
Can I
Do
have
you want
that?
this one?
Yeah, I'm just about to sing Exile.
Are you started yet?
Yes. Do you want?
People are actually asking, is Claire going to show an appearance? So you are.
You don't show an appearance.
Make an appearance.
No, you don't show an appearance.
Make an appearance.
Can you get your English right?
Make an appearance.
Did you like your dinner that Evie and me cooked for you?
Yes, I did like the dinner.
What did you have for dinner?
Guacamole.
Guacamole.
Guacamole. You're interrupting my show now. Thank you for this.
Okay, are you going to sing anything nice?
No, I'm going to sing anything horrible.
What are you singing?
I really need to crack on because this is like I'm on stage and you're walking up and interrupting me on stage.
I'm just bringing you wine.
I know, but now it's done.
See you
Thank
later.
you.
Have fun. Enjoy.
Bye bye.
I can hear you from the house.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Have fun.
Bye.
Do you want a cat or a dog?
No, I don't want any cat or any dog.
You know our cat who's left home for 4 months?
Yes,
He just came back in. He moved up to the lady up the road
Yeah.
for 4 months. He just came back in.
Right.
Like nothing had happened.
But imagine I'm actually on stage and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of people listening to.
Yeah, well, that's why it's nice because I can get to do that when I can't.
Bye, Claire. I think she's starting to do this on purpose now. Anyway. So anyway, I was teaching guitar at Quentin Kynaston. I'd got a teaching certificate from Brighton, from Sussex University, which enabled me to go into these places. And these two girls, the two sisters from Eritrea, so abandoned, lost, a long way from home. So I wrote this song about them, but all the people that we find floating around our streets and shores, who are dispossessed and displaced. So this is Exile. Felt a shadow passing over me. It could stay forevermore. Like a wave I'm breaking far at sea, and there's no one to hear the roar. The days are drifting into seasons, and they're the hardest I have known. A million spaces in the earth to fill, but no going home. There's no going home. I can dream before the break of day that I'm back with you again. Then the morning blows it all away and leaves an echo of your name. Still 1,000 miles lie between us, where we're waking up alone. And what if I could cross 100 borders? There's no going home. There's no going home. When it thunders from the empty skies, I will be there. No one to hold you when the storm birds fly. Is no one left to care. I search the rumors with my hollow plans, when all I want is what's mine. Lost and lonely in a foreign land, I'm left too far behind the lines. I wanna tear down the walls between us, but I can't do it on my own. A million spaces in the earth to fill, and there's a generation waiting still. We've got year after year to kill, but no going home. No going home. There's no going home. Exile. Got clagged up just on the high bit. Still, it's live-ish. Isn't it? So, did some interesting things, mainly through John Roseman during that time. He had this video production company, as I said, and occasionally I was called in to assist. The Eurythmics were doing this video shoot for Sweet Dreams, which featured a big Jersey cow, a heifer, in a boardroom in a disused office block in Oxford Street. So I was there to assist, and guys, here mate, you're from Devon, hold the bloody cow. So I had to sort of hold this cow, check out the video. And also once I was a body double for David Essex because he was late, and I had to sort of stand there and go, hold me close and let me go, you know, just like, and even wore the waistcoat and the hat and all that stuff. Then that was it. I think I got paid £25 for that. I'm trying to think if I can remember one of the songs that Total Strangers or Short Stories played. The big ending number was a song called No More. And John used to do this blistering guitar solo in it. I can't do it in the original key. It used to be in F sharp. We talked till late last night, turning over old stones. But I might be able to do it in B. There's quite a few changes of key. And I'm not going to do it. In those days I would go, you know, that sort of new wave, sort of like thrashy stuff. But I'll do a more open strum now, if I can remember it. No More. Let's just see. Wish me luck. This is the end of a short stories gig at the Cartoon Club. So if I can remember it, this is No More. We talked till late that night, turning over old stones. Looks like we ran out of fight, and the dark had grown. We used to burn so bright we couldn't find the flames, and in the fading light, who can I blame? Now I'm living on air in one room, and I sing to myself, but it's an old tune about shaking dice and a hand that feeds, about paying the price and being empty. No more dreaming of the big break, no more falling in the back straight, no more staring at the TV, no more dreaming where it could be. 3 short minutes of fame where a friend could be, too scared to even pin a name to the memory. I'm gonna turn out the light and close the door. I'm gonna settle this time the old score. No more falling in the back straight, no more dreaming of the big break, no more staring at the TV, no more dreaming where it could be. No more, no more, no more, no more, oh, if I can remember this bit. Oh, as I said, John used to do the most amazing solo at the end of that. Gosh, that's a bit of a thrash. So by about 1986, all the band lineups had come and gone. We hadn't been signed. Did some Adrian and Dave McIntosh, I think, were the last lineup, with Barry Wickens on fiddle still. I think we were called the West, the Fine Incantation. So I moved back to Dorset, thinking, you know, I'd had a go at music. It hadn't worked out. Had to do something else with the rest of my life. As I said, I was 32. I used my teaching certificate to teach part-time at the local comprehensive Bedminster, BEAMINSTER, where I really, more than anything, got involved in country life, in pub life, in darts and in cricket, you know. Gave a few guitar lessons. PJ Harvey, Polly lived just down the road, about half a mile. One day she knocked on the door with her mum. I think she was 17 at the time, and her mum said, you know, do you give guitar lessons? And there was this girl there with a mass of black curly hair, and I think we did 12 or 13, 14 lessons, and it was in exchange for topsoil and hamstone, because her dad, the late great Ray, was at the concession for stone at the Ham Hill. So it was lots of things rather than music. This was about 1986, 1987. And then Phil came along to sort of ride to my rescue, as it were. He was doing a lot of work in the Albion band, but by about 87, 88, 89, he had more and more time to do solo projects. So in those early days, we started doing the Odd Folk Club. This is a sort of pre-show of hands as a full-time thing. Talking about 89, 90, 91. Hooked up with a guy called Peter Wilson down there in Dorset. Peter was a local agent, and he got us as many pub gigs as we did folk clubs. And all of that pub rock experience came in quite useful, because I could play quite hard and quite fast. And in a pub, you have to sort of get on with it, you know. We were learning lots of standards and lots of sort of bluesy stuff, as well as the Stones and the Beatles. I started slipping in songs that sounded, they sounded like they were covers, you know. I'm gonna bring the wolf at my door. I think I know. You know, those rhythms aren't necessarily folky. Wolf at the door, and gotta put on to drive to the coast. 15 miles, it's an hour at the most, and cars and stuff like that. So as well as the standards and the Pogues and the sort of like Dubliner stuff, we were doing stuff that was original, Galway Farmer, but sounded almost like a standard. And we got quite gig fit in that sense, you know. We were doing anywhere between gospel and in the east, Portsmouth in the east and Plymouth in the west, Bristol in the north. That was our sort of 2-hour patch, because I was actually teaching part-time in Bedminster for 2.5 days a week. So it was it was a strange time, really. I wasn't really one thing or the other. And the songs that came out of that time started to reflect more the world I found myself in. Because all of the London stuff, you know, the No More and the sort of young man angst and the love songs didn't seem appropriate. I was brought up playing acoustic music, folk music, so I started to write about the people that I met, people that I saw in the countryside. You know, I got Long Dog and I got Red Diesel and Transported, about the sort of rural characters that I was immersed in. And in particular, I wrote a song called Come By about hill farmers, because where I lived in Corsican was quite high up. You could see from all the way north to Glastonbury in the north. You could see all the way from we were on the east side, north side of a hill. We could see all the way up to across the levels, up to Glastonbury Tor, and it was sheep farming country. And I wanted to write a song about that way of life. And what finished the song off really was meeting the wonderful John Wright, the late John Wright, who was the most beautiful singer, who, as well as a traditional folk singer with a fine tenor voice, at one time was a hill farmer. So we hooked up. I think it was Snake in the Netherlands. We sat and we chatted, and he gave me all the expressions for a song about hill farming. Come by and the shearlings and clipping the fleece and So I took a lot of John's references and a lot of his nouns and a lot of his expressions. Come by, a strong-eyed dog, strong-eyed, he worked with the land. Come by, good dog, lay down, all these commands. And I fed it into this song about the guys and the farmers who lived around me in North Dorset. I arrived in 1986, just after Chernobyl. So that reference, the dark cloud gathered in the east, refers to that shadow that hung over the farmers at that time. They weren't sure where the cloud would unload its toxic poison. So this is Come By. My father found this land in the early 60s. And he led me by the hand across the endless fields. He made these hills his own, clearing every stone. In the wind and the rain alone, he was a farmer. Our dogs would drive the flocks to the higher pastures, and I'd watch him choose the rocks to mend the dry stone walls. There was steel beneath the skin as he called the stragglers in. His voice lost on the wind, ever a farmer. Come on, away, come by, lie down. And in 1986, when the dark clouds gathered, cold wind from the east blew dusted with decay on the great and on the small. Well, it settled on us all, and we watched the margins fall for the farm. Where are the shearlings now to gather in the folds, to cut, to clip and to mark, when there's no fleece to be sold, and a life of learning skills out on these western hills? Well, it barely pays the bills for the farmer. So now he sits and stares into the distance, and I hear him climb the stairs, where restless in his sleep he stretches out his hands, and the dogs at his command, strong-eyed, they still work the land with the farmer. Come on, away, come by, lie down. Good dog. Out there. so proud when John sang that song. It was a great thrill. Hello?
But I can't really come in.
No, you can't.
We have got a bit of an emergency.
What?
Evie found a tick on Pip,
Yeah.
and she says you need to. Here she is. There you go.
I'm not going to do it now.
But it's pretty gross.
I know it is. It would be. I'll do it in a minute.
Oh my god.
She's not going to die.
Yeah,
What?
but Evie's saying I just got out of the bath.
I know you have.
Alright,
You're
I will
not, no, you're not. Go.
So
I will come in and do it.
Will you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that Evie. It's alright. Daddy will do it, but he's doing his gig thing.
Yeah. Live. Yeah.
Sorry, live. What?
It's not. If it's on her neck, it's not a tick. It's a little bit of skin. It's like a little tiny mole. On her neck, it's not a tick. Definitely. I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it.
Okay,
Country
you better
life,
let him
eh?
get on. He's doing a song, Evie.
Country life.
What, Evie? It's what I'm not. They can't see
Can
me.
you? Can you?
I'm going. I'm not. They can't see me.
Yeah, they can't see her, Evie. Just in a towel. Oh, that was good timing, wasn't it? Ticks. Actually, it's not a tick. It's like a little tiny mole. I know what it is on it. No. So, also at that time, of course, Alianza, which I've mentioned, the guys on the quattro lesson, and also the wonderful Ralph McTowell. And it's almost too many musicians to mention on the journey I've been on, you know. Tom Robinson and Martin Joseph, what a great thrill it was touring with those guys. I learnt what it was to commit yourself to a song from those two, you know. Watching them on stage, just really go for it, was a great thrill. And Ralph, we learnt so much from Ralph. Our first big break was touring with Ralph in 1994. Lots of wisdom and lots of tips, as you know. We've called them the McTips over the years. Little bits of stagecraft and how to conduct yourself generally as a musician. Where am I now? I fed into this whole story Bob Dylan, Martin Carthy, Ted Hughes, and I have to add those musicians, Ralph and Martin and Tom, and all the people that we work with, and Richard Shindell. I'll talk about Richard in a minute, and John Roseman as well. They've all sort of were my guides, and learnt so much from those people. But then the wonderful David Oddie. I don't know what our sound would be without David, really. He was extraordinary. He was irascible. He was uncompromising. He did not suffer fools. He was solid. He was sort of English oak, and through his hands, these wonderful instruments. You know, you've heard, I don't know if I played this one today, so... But we had this wonderful trilogy in a way. We had David's instruments. We had all of the electronics done by another local guy who was actually trained by David, I think, from in the post office GPO, John Godsland, Orchid Electronics, made in the pickups and the preamps we use. And the pickups in the guitars were made by the late Al Jones, his own sort of piezo undersaddle pickups. So local craftsmen feeding into the sounds that we make. And people see the instruments that we have on stage, and I thought I'd do a little journey around them. I thought I'd play the same song on all four instruments, and then you can hear the different sort of landscape that each instrument presents. I think I might do a little bit of Make the Right Noises. On the tenor guitar, the quattro, and the mandocello. So this is Wish Me Luck. I haven't really done this for a while. I'm not sure which one to start off with. I think I'll go tenor guitar, cello mandolin, quattro, and finish on the guitar. Okay. So, thank you, David. Listen. You say one thing, but I hear another. And you write friend, I read lover. But you hold all the cards and you make the choices. Say anything, make the right noises. Lee said, then the soonest mended. May your better judgment lie suspended. But in the night, fading hope rejoices. Say anything, make the right noises. Say anything, make the right noises. But there's a little time before you go, and there's one thing you can say, I don't know. But I need the truth a little understated. Of all the virtues, sincerity must be the most overrated. Overrated. And if your words remain unspoken for a while, my heart might not be broken. So talk to me, don't listen to your voices. Say anything, make the right noises. Say anything, make the right noises. Talk to me, don't listen to your voices. Say anything, make the right noises. Say anything, make the right noises. A trip round the oldies. Well, I wasn't sure whether to go back to the tenor at the end of that one. I'm glad I did. I suppose now recently, the person I've got the closest to as regards a musician is Richard Shindell. He's sort of like my soulmate, really, Richard, wherever he is, hiding out in Argentina. I hope he's safe and well, and all his family. But when you tour with people, and all the people that we've toured with over the years, from Jenna, Phil and Hannah, you know, Rodney, with Jim Causley, or the list goes on and on and on, really. Rory Joseph, you know, you get to see how they exercise their craft, and you get to see how they engage with an audience, you know, and in particular, it was amazing to watch Richard do it through a technique which I think he more than any other deploys. It's just poetry. It's just the words. He's not a natural trooper, and he would admit this. He's not the sort of guy who goes, okay, let's do a lot of standards, you know, let's do some rhythm and blues. He does his thing. He puts on his movie, and you have to sit there, and you either are engaged by it or you're not. And most times you'd sit in the darkness and watch him do his work, and you'd hear people just drawn in to the lyrics. And he has that American landscape, which in a way as a writer you quite envy. You know, when people talk about crossing the Ohio state line or driving through New Orleans, it's just sort of work. It's cinema, isn't it? You know, we're so familiar with that world from movies, and you feel like you've been there already. You feel like you've been in that motel, or you've been on that freeway, or you've crossed that county line. And I don't know what it is about American place names, you know, like if you were to sing, gotta get out of New Orleans, honey, let's head to New York City. Or else, gotta get out of Reading, baby, we still dream about Swindon. Maybe to an American ear it sounds as resonant, you know, but I don't think it does. And Richard, you know, touring with him, you get to see England through his eyes, which is great. He watches our accents change every 40 miles, the local rivalries, you know. He can't believe that one show is so close to the next, you know. It's the same when touring with Lenny and Matt as well. You know, they're used to doing 500 miles between shows. So we're a small country. We're crammed together quite tightly. And it's an endless fascination for our North American friends. Also our foodstuffs, you know, what they make of Marmite and lardy cake and black pudding. Let alone the whole clotted cream and jam controversy. So I'll sing one of Richard's songs. In many ways, I think for the American writer, the Civil War occupies the same poetic space that the Great War does for us, you know. And it's and I didn't realise it until talking to Richard at length how toxic the whole thing of race still is in America. Really, how close to the surface some of it is. And he put me right on a number of things. And he said that the way that you think about things in England, he said, it's dark. He said, I've got some cousins, or I know people in Macon County, and you just do not want to scratch. You don't want to go beneath the surface of how they look at the world. So anyway, my favourite song of Richard's is Reunion Hill, a classic Civil War song. And I love this image at the end. And I asked him if he intended it, and he said, well, you know, it's up to you to decide. This hawk that rises above the couple so far that it can see them back together. You know, if that isn't relativity, if that's not Einstein at work, you know, time and space, I don't know what is. It must have been late September when last I climbed Reunion Hill. I fell asleep on Indian Boulder. I dreamed a dream I will not tell. I came home as the sun went down. One night trained upon the ground, and even now I find their things, glasses, coins, and golden rings. It's been 10 years since that ragged army limped across these fields of mine. I gave them bread, I gave them candy, and most of all, I gave them time. My wells are deep, my water pure, drawn from clearest mountain lakes. I cooled the brow of many a soldier, dousing for my husband's face. I won't forget our sad farewell, how I ran to climb the hill, to watch him walk across the valley and disappear into the trees. All alone in a sea of blue, it circles every down with God's own eye. It soars above Reunion Hill. I pray it spirals higher still, as if from such an altitude. It might just keep our love in view. Must have been late September when last I climbed Reunion Hill. And even as I sang that, I realised why the hawk line had such resonance with me, because in the first part of this show I did hawk roosting. I fly up or revolve it all slowly. I kill where I please, where it's all mine, as if from such an altitude. That's such a strong connection between, if you get a chance, go back to listen to me singing hawk roosting and that lyric of Richard's. I didn't realise until I put it in context, the connection there. So, various things really, as we emerge into the duo period, the show of hands period. I think we have to, at this point, obviously mention the extraordinary effect that Miranda's had upon our career. The most solid musician I've ever worked with. I mean, women musicians generally are really on it. You know, I work with Hannah, same with Jenna, really. They don't want to wing it. They don't want to take chances. They want to get it right. And whereas blokes just bullshit, you know. Do you know the chords? Yeah, it'll be fine. Do you need to run it again? No. There's a sort of macho, like, blokes driving thing. But most of the women musicians go, can we run that again? Can we just rehearse that again? So if we're on stage and if any confusion, Miranda is just like, she's totally on it. And so, yeah, my thoughts and feelings and love go out to her. And do tune in after this show to see her do her thing. And hope all goes well with her. So where do we get to now? Yeah, greatest ever Devonians, doctors of music from Plymouth University. You know, there's so many things I could have added to this musical journey, but I think I'll finish where I'm finished now with one song. I'll finish with Long Dog as a tribute and a thanks to all of the fans, particularly the Long Dogs crowd over the years. They've stayed with us through thick and thin, way before Facebook or anything like that. We had our own dedicated website, and people talked not just about us, but about all their other musical loves. You know, it became a way of people connecting, people saying, look, I'm in this part of the world, where do you recommend we stay? You know, people from Canada, people from all over the world, people from the Netherlands, Renee and Chantal, and sort of connect and meet up all through our music. So I'll finish with Long Dog because it's the song that they're named after. Thank all them, thank all you. The next thing I think I'll do, I'll do a covers show, part 1 and 2. And that will be songs that we have covered already, and maybe ones that people might want us to have a go at. Don't want to be too ambitious, but I'll put a little post up saying the request post for covers, and people can put down the songs from Radiohead to Richard to Dylan or whatever, that probably based around the ones that you know, that we know or that I know, but maybe I might sneak in a couple more. So I'll finish with my Dorset song, Long Dog. Need to thank Giles for this, because his was the shop in the middle of the square. Frampton's the butchers. We've all come a long way, haven't we, pal, since those days. And Giles was one of the firemen that rescued me from the roof when I had a chimney fire. I got on the Velux roof to try and put the fire out with clods of earth, and the Velux window closed behind me. I ended up straddled across a cottage on the hills in North Dorset. There was the comforting sound of the fire engine coming over from Bedminster, and the less than comforting sound of all these guys pissing themselves at laughter with this bloody punk rocker from London stuck on a fucking roof. Yeah. Anyway, that's how we became friends. Wasn't quite the way to meet. So I'll finish up with this one. And again, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget the PayPal honesty box. I do appreciate it. It trickles in, and it's made me feel a lot more confident about getting through certainly the next 2 or 3 months. See you again. Red brick cottage on the edge of the woods, cars and cages all around. At the back in a lean-to shed, that's where my lone dog's found. Got a 4-wheel pickup and a shotgun, never bought a meal in my life. I go shopping with a lamp and a knife. I got a lone dog, I am a poacher. Well, I'm working in the fields one night on another man's land. Those boys in blue watch me leave, a sack full of rabbits in hand. Early next day they follow me down to a shop in the middle of the square. Sold a brace of pheasants, a rabbit and a hare. Got a long dog, I am a poacher. You know there's only one thing a poor man needs, a lean and a long dog built for speed. I was in the woods of the town JP, and the county court, they didn't agree. We got the long dog, we got the poacher. I've done my time and now I'm on the street, smarter in the head, lighter on my feet. When those boys are out on the beat, I'm only gonna catch what I'm gonna eat. With my love dog, I am a poacher. You know I got 3 months and a big fat farm, but I'm not naming names. Half the town's had a really good time living on Long Dog Lane. It's a red brick cottage on the edge of the woods, cars and cages all around, and I'm sleeping all day till the night comes down. With my long dog, I am a poacher. I am the poacher. Very few things are good for my pot. Rabbits, pheasant, duck, little miniature thing. Escaped from Longley, that was very pleasant. I said go, go, I am a poacher. Whoa! Fetch. See you later.